Hi, my name is Scott McCall, and I am an instructor for Bainbridge Island Museum of Art and a Seattle artist. I'm here today with another BIMA from Home Art in Action. Today, we'll be creating straw applique, a traditional art form from my home state, New Mexico. Let's get started. All right, let's get started talking about the materials we're going to need for our straw applique project. So the first thing I'm going to need is a sheet of black paper. This is what we're going to use to build our artwork on top of. After that, I'm going to use a glue stick. If you don't have a glue stick, you could use normal white glue or whatever your preferred glue is. That will work just fine for this. Next, I'm going to need some scissors to cut out our pieces. And I'm also going to need a couple, I'm going to use paint markers. These are markers that are filled with acrylic paint. They show up really well on this black paper, but you could use crayons, you could use colored pencil, you might have a gel pen. Any of those things will work really great with this. And then the star of our show is actually something that will come from your kitchen possibly. Does anyone recognize one of these? This is what is known as an hoja, and this is what we use to make tamales in New Mexico, where I'm from. Every Christmas, my family gathers together and we get together in a big party and we make an assembly line, and we use these to put our dough on and our filling in, and then we steam the tamale inside of this. So some of you may have these already in your kitchen. If you don't, these are normally sold in the grocery store in the Hispanic food section. But this is what we're going to use instead of straw. We're going to use this hoja material. And let's talk about this. What this is actually the leaf that grows around a corn. So when they harvest the corn, the part you eat, that goes to the grocery store, and then these are saved and they get dried out and then are reused to make tamales, or in our case, to make artwork. Let's talk about how we're going to make this project. So one preliminary step you're going to want to go ahead and do is you might notice that this hoja is very dry and crinkly. That's because it's been dried all the way out, so it's not as flexible as I might like. So what I've gone and done is I got a little jar and I filled it with hot water and just long enough to kind of get everything wet. And then I take my hoja out and I can dry it with a little bit of paper towel. And when it's done, you'll notice it's a lot more flexible. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that off camera. I'll dry this really good, and this will be what I use to make the straw applique pieces. Okay, I'm back, and I have my hoja all dried out. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use my scissors, and I can just start, and I'm gonna make a couple different strips of different thicknesses. So this one I'd say is about, I don't know, an inch thick, maybe a little bit less. And I'm just gonna cut some strips of this hoja into nice straight strips. I can do a couple that are maybe about the same. Sometimes you might find the scissors will follow along a vein in the hoja, and that will be good. But sometimes you might have to just cut across the grain, and that's gonna be okay. This one's not perfectly straight, but I can go ahead and fix that. As Bob Ross says, there are no mistakes, only happy accidents. So who knows, that might be my favorite part of this whole thing, is that little jagged edge. So we're gonna come in here, just cut a couple more strips. And it's okay if they vary in size, because we'll have some that are gonna serve different purposes for us. Another strip. And I'm gonna cut a couple that are gonna be real small for some detail pieces in our straw applique. Cut one more. All right, kind of just tear those. All right, so I have a couple strips, and we'll pick it up here and just... All right, so I have one of my strips, and what I need to do next is cut a bunch of little diamond shapes. Now the easiest way for me to cut a bunch of little diamond shapes is to just start on the square edge of the first strip and cut a diagonal cut, just like that. Can you see that? And once I do that, what I'm gonna do is add a second diagonal cut to the front, and that's gonna give me a little diamond. So you'll see, I get one little diamond. The idea is to have lots of these. So I'm gonna come here and just work my way down the strip, cutting little diamonds. And don't be too finicky about this, it's okay. This is a handicraft, so it should look like hands made it, and sometimes hands don't do things perfect, and that is just fine. All right, so there's a couple little diamond pieces that I can start making my artwork with. All right, so I have a big pile of little triangles here now to use as my materials. And what I want to tell you a little bit about right now at this point is what we're doing here. So straw applique comes from applique furniture that was made back in Spain a long time ago. And what happened is when people from Spain moved into what we now call New Mexico, they wanted to have objects that looked like what they had back home in Spain, but they didn't exactly have the materials or the craftsmen that were needed to make those things. So what they did was they used the materials that were around them to create very similar looking objects. So since they didn't have the really exotic hardwoods and things that they were using in Spain, what they used was the straw that grew in New Mexico. So we're not using straw today because I live in the city and there's no straw around where I live. But there is a grocery store that sells hojas, and this is a really fantastic facsimile of how they do straw applique. If you can look, it almost looks like lots of little straw stacked up together, which is what they would have done in New Mexico. The other thing we want to think about is we're going to make a geometric design, and that also comes from Spain and also from New Mexico, which are both countries that had people that used geometric designs in their artwork. In Spain, those would have been the Moorish people, and in New Mexico, those would have been the Pueblo people that used a lot of geometric designs on their pottery. So we're gonna go ahead and kind of find some different things, and I'm gonna start figuring out a design that maybe works for me. That one's a little too big. You're gonna have to play around and find the pieces that work. What I'm trying to create is like a sun. Kind of like that. It's the beginning of a good sun. Gonna need some smaller pieces maybe. And I'm just trying to figure out how this is all gonna fit together before I start gluing it down. Now, of course, these are gonna wanna curl up because they're not glued, but that's okay because you still can kind of get an idea about what everything's gonna look like. All right, I think I'm kind of starting to see something. I'm gonna play around with this more, and when I come back, we'll have an idea for our design. All right, we are back. As you noticed, I've spent a little time and I was able to come up with a design that I feel pretty good about. These aren't glued down yet, so what we're gonna go ahead and do now is glue down all of our pieces. So to glue down our pieces, I get a glue stick and just drag this over the surface of it. And if you get glue on your fingers, you might want to have a paper towel nearby to help you. Just gonna go ahead and glue that. I'm trying not to get the glue on the black because it will show up a little bit when it dries, but if you get some glue on it, it's not the end of the world. One thing I love about straw applique is often the sort of thing that you might be doing in the fall time, which is the time it is now as I'm shooting this video. And doing this sort of a craft always reminds me of being back home and the beautiful fall that we would have in New Mexico. Some of you may have visited there before, and maybe you were there in the fall when the balloon fiesta is happening, and the sky is just filled with hot air balloons everywhere. And my favorite part is you hear them. They're very quiet when they fly over, and then suddenly they roar just like a lion when they go over you, and it can be really exciting. The other thing I love about fall in New Mexico is it is a time when the chili is harvested, and people who grow and sell chili will come into town and they roast it in big fire roasters on the side of the road, and the whole town smells like delicious fire roasted chili, and it's my favorite smell in the entire world. And I hope each and every one of you has the opportunity to one day go to New Mexico just to smell that smell, because it is unbelievable. Alright, so my gluing's going pretty well. Softening the hojas up in some water definitely helped to help them not want to curl up and to stay down. They like being glued down that way. Again, I just used a little bit of hot water and let them soak for maybe a minute. It was probably not even a minute at the end of by the time I was all done. Let's see, okay, that's looking good. All right, we're coming into the home stretch here on our design. Now when you're done, this little card that you're making might make a great seasonal card. Maybe there's somebody you want to share with. All right, just last couple here. All right, last one. All right, looking good. All right, feel like we're almost there, but we need just maybe one or two more little touches. So I'm gonna grab my paint pens, give them a good shake. I think I'm gonna put some turquoise, because turquoise is the state gemstone of New Mexico. I'm gonna add some little turquoise embellishments. My little corner's sticking up there. I might need to re-glue that. Ooh, I'm liking that. Maybe we'll add one there. And I'm just making little dots with the paint. It's nothing fancy. Just kind of looks like a little turquoise gem like you might use in jewelry. And because New Mexico always reminds me of the song De Colores, which is the colors, I like to use lots of colors in my work when I'm doing New Mexican folk art. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of purple into this too. Yeah, I like that. Alright, I think it needs just one last little touch. I think I'm going to bring some pink in here. There we go. What do you think? I think this is a lovely little card. Maybe I'll send this to somebody in my family back home in New Mexico. Wonder what you'll do with the one you make. Alright guys, I think that is it. I hope you enjoyed our lesson today, and looking forward to the next Art in Action BIMA at Home.